you're doing right now, which is so awesome. Hi, everybody. Welcome to the FiveStack. I'm Dean. That's Zev. But yeah, that's like an old school rule that I had when I was in the workforce, if you will, prior to starting my own company.
Yeah.
Never booked anything after 3 o'clock.
Look,
It's just smart business.
it's a smart move. No one wants to make any deals either on a Friday afternoon. No one wants to talk about anything. Are you a casual Friday kind of guy, or are you a casual always kind of guy?
I'm a casual Friday guy, but I'm a casual always guy too. Like this morning, we had just a tremendously worked very, very hard this week. Substack and content is the only thing I do, and so I was going to take Friday afternoon off.
Hmm.
I'm addicted to this app, so in no way, shape, or form could I. And then we got a notice that we were number one in the Rising Culture bestsellers list, and then number two in the new bestsellers list behind the
Congratulations.
Lincoln Group. Yeah, and so it was funny because I kept looking at it this afternoon, going, "Us, me, what is
Well,
going
I
on?"
mean, you're a big name, Canadians who know you, and many of them know you. You're a legend. So and a very talented legend. So of course they're following, and of course you're brilliant now as you've always been. So I'm thrilled for your success.
Sweet. I'm
I
thrilled
am.
for yours too.
I am happy for mine too. We should mention, by the way, if people want to join on
Yes.
the app, it's now possible for people to become a paid subscriber on the app. So
Hmm.
if you've been stuck before trying to become a paid subscriber, now you can do so using the app. Not that I've done it, but I'm told you can do it.
Yeah, I
So
was told we've got this offer. It's like a thank you offer for all the incredible support we've received, where you get 20% off the annual price, but you get a lifetime membership with it. So the annual is really lifetime. It's like super, super cheap, and we've seen some incredible subscriptions this month. But to your point, yes, I've had people tell me today that they can finally sign up on the app, which is incredible. So everybody go do the same with Zev. He's got 30% off. Our deal for that lifetime membership goes through the whole weekend. It ends on Monday, and I'll try and do something special for everybody next month as well.
sounds good. All right, we've got a big show tonight and not that much time, so let's get right to it.
Yeah.
Um, Hi, everybody. By the way, lots of people joining. Nice to have you here. Let's begin with this. I know we have to start with this tariff war, even though it's a bit mind-numbing at times. This is really serious. What's going on now? It appears to me like every dollar indicator around the market is pointing down. I mean, the actual value of the dollar is below 100 on the benchmark index, which normally they measure this against the dollar against other currencies, a basket of other currencies. Normally, it's been above 100. It's occasionally dipped below 100 in these other crises we've had in the past, but it is persistently now below 100. This is terrible news for the dollar. It makes you realize that there is a sell off of all these US assets, all these US dollar assets around the world that's
Mhm.
happening from Japan to China and other
Belgium.
Belgium. So what we're seeing is just a really difficult to understand policy now by this administration to cut the value of the dollar, to devalue the dollar, even though they know it's happening, they can see it happening. They're persistently continuing with their tariff strategy, which is what is causing all of this. To me, it's nonsensical that a administration which could actually pause, not even pause, stop this whole thing completely and regain the trust in the US dollar does not seem interested in doing it. What they seem to be interested in doing is trashing the value of the dollar, devaluing it, maybe on purpose. Who
Yeah.
knows?
No, they are.
So,
Yeah.
so that we're seeing that, and we're also seeing this dangerous U.S. sell-off that's happening of all these U.S. assets. And what's dangerous here is this doesn't come back. The U.S. dollar used to be the reserve currency for 75% of the world. Now it's 58% of the world. If these guys sell off for even more now, who knows what it'll be after this particular crisis. It could be very likely that the US dollar will not be the dominant
Hmm.
reserve currency, sorry, the dominant reserve currency around the world. And
Yeah.
that is terrifying for, people who believe in freedom, people who believe in rights, people who believe in democracy, people who believe in voting, people who believe in unfettered markets, which is what the US dollar has always been about. We're losing that to the very, very authoritarian Chinese who are,
Hmm.
not good friends with democracy, who believe in an autocratic system, who are quite corrupt. And this is what's happening. This is the situation that the world is leaning in towards China and all they stand for, all the dictatorship and all the autocracy they stand for, and away from democracy. It's a very, very difficult situation because, of course, no one wants to be seen supporting Trump.
Yeah, it's such a great start for the FiveStack today with this whole China tariff. The domination of global markets, what's happening, where money is going, what's happening to the U.S. dollar. So let's just deal with that. Is he intentionally trying to tank the U.S. dollar? Yes, he's trying to bring in another reserve, which is the crypto reserve and gold reserve. He's trying to bring that back, right? Bitcoin, da 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 da. So that's part of this. The other part of this that should scare the shit out of every American that's got all their money wrapped up in fiat money, investments, Wall Street, is this incredibly quiet bond sell off. It isn't just China that's flooding the market slowly, Japan flooding the market slowly, Korea, Belgium. So is the EU, specifically Belgium. And where that's interesting is that you've got every major country deciding to put America in its place. As you point out, this isn't something that comes back overnight. It's not a light switch you turn on where Trump picks up the phone and goes, "Hey, sorry about all this. I was out of my mind," or I was drinking heavily, or I'm into the Sudafed.
It was just Friday
You know,
afternoon. I thought
yeah,
maybe I shouldn't,
he's got 90 days to negotiate with 150 countries that are currently devaluing the American dollar every day by selling bonds, not buying US Treasury bonds. And where that gets really interesting is this report that I read today, which was fascinating. I can't remember the name of the gentleman who was on Substack. But what he did was basically he put up a graph, and the graph was like, here's where America's investment into Treasury bills, Treasury bonds is going. And they looked over at another graph of the EU, and the investment in the EU currency has gone through the roof, because that's a stable economy between all of those countries that share that monetary value. Same thing with Canada. Investment into Canada. We had a great day on the market today. Investment into Canada, because we're also selling Canadian bonds, but we're selling them in US dollars, which was Mark Carney's initial brilliant step when he decided to deal with this by being a little precautionary. He said, "Hey, listen, we need to raise some money, so we're going to sell Canadian bonds in US dollars." So we're sucking that money out. But Mark Carney is also, and Canada is a top four holder of US Treasury bonds. We're a top four country, and we own their debt. That's exactly what that is. They'll sell you, "Hey, we're the American dollar. You got to buy us." They make a bunch of money because people buy these bonds, and that's how it works. Well, Mark Carney has gone around the world, and this is an article that I put up, which has gone viral, basically telling everybody, nudge, nudge, wink, wink, we have the hammer. America does not. And that hammer is the outstanding debt, which they're now selling into the marketplace. And I didn't think it would go this fast. I didn't think we'd see Trump blink. I knew we'd see him blink, but I didn't think we'd see Trump blink until those treasury bonds and the bond yields, which are at an all-time low for the United
Yeah.
States, are being activated and being sold into the marketplace. And that's exactly what happens. Now, listen, we've talked about this a couple of times. If this continues, America's done. The economy's finished. So
Yeah.
don't
That's
think for a second. Don't think for a second that this isn't happening, because it's legitimately happening and nobody's talking about it. You see dribs and drabs, but there is no mainstream media news outlet that's talking about it, because America and the financial institutions that run that country are terrified.
I look. I know this is happening. It's very, very serious, and I think what's wrong about it. And let me say that I don't agree with what Carney's saying. I don't agree that the world should be abandoning America right now. I think it's important that our world stands by America, not by Donald Trump, but by the American values, the American system. The fact that these Western democracies are cooperating with China. The fact that they're cooperating with this corrupt regime in China, which has been manipulating the world's markets and stealing from the world's markets and stealing our IP and having currency manipulation. That the fact that the Canadian government is currently on the side of China, as is the EU, is abhorrent to me. I don't think that that's right. I think they
Mm.
should be putting pressure on the American government, the regime, to get out of there. But I do not think that they should be selling off US dollar assets in the way they are, no matter what. This is
Mm.
ridiculous. This is our ally just south of the border. Why are they forsaking the American people who are, our friends, our allies, our family? And so I've been aware of this, but it's been bugging me for days. Why is Canada, of all countries, the standard bearer now in the world for freedom, for values, for democracy, for liberalism, why are they out there supporting the Chinese attempt to take over the world and to become the reserve currency of the world? And this is what Carney's doing. And I'll leave aside all the Carney CCP allegations because that's too much for us to get into. But there are too many things going on right now that make it feel to me like the Canadian government is not standing behind the American people. And to me, it's becoming problematic. And I've kept relatively quiet about it, but it's impossible now to understand this logic. It just doesn't make sense to me.
Yeah, that's a gregreat point. And it's funny because you hold your nose every time you read anything about any country like the EU doing business with China today, where they signed a free trade agreement for
Yeah.
Chinese EVs.
They're rerouting all the train traffic now, all the rail traffic to go outside of Russia to go directly from China to EU. I mean, this is a blatant takeover of the world's economic trading systems by China, and we are just helping it along in Canada, and so is the EU, and we're forgetting the very values, the very fundamental things that we're about.
Well, we are, and you've heard the old saying, "The enemy of my enemy is my friend."
Yes.
When it comes to world markets, like a collapse of global markets, sometimes I think you got to do business with assholes. Pardon my French. I said I wouldn't swear or vape on this show. I'm doing pretty good so far.
Yeah.
But you have to do business with people you don't want to do business with. And to Mark Carney's point, this is a global economy. China is the second biggest economy in the world. You're not going to out China. You're not going to work around China. You are going to have to deal with them in some capacity.
Ditto the Trump administration. I mean, you don't have to. I mean, if you compare these two organizations, I mean, yes, we all hate Donald Trump, absolutely. But is Xi any better? If you compare these side by side, are the Chinese preferable to the United States? Absolutely not. Absolutely not.
At the moment, they are. I don't disagree with you, dude. I've been brought up to hate that country as well. I hate the fact that they oppress their people. I hate the fact that they run Uyghur concentration camps. I hate the fact that they took the two Michaels hostage for a couple of years, two Canadian
and killed
guys.
A bunch just recently. They killed a bunch of Canadians for no good reason.
Well, a couple of them, a few of them were drug traffickers. So I'm not taking. Well, you traffic drugs in a country that says we'll kill you if you traffic drugs. I mean,
it's not a great thing, but they don't have the death penalty in a way they're using it in a way that's unfair. But anyway,
well, I know, but listen, we're talking about the fact that you're disgusted that China and we have to do business with China. Everybody's disgusted by it, even the people that are doing business with China. But this is about survival at this point, and there's legitimately no difference between the United States, other than the people, the United States government and the Chinese government, in my mind, at this point. How many people are being disappeared from the streets of America right now?
Not as many as might be disappearing from the streets of Beijing and Shanghai. You just never hear about it.
There's 1.5 billion more people there, dude.
Look, you've got talking about two completely different cultures here. You've got an open culture that's democracy, that's full of openness and friendliness and acceptance, and then you've got China, which is basically. Yes,
America. Talking about America?
Yes, America's not changed in the last 2 weeks. You remember 2 weeks ago you said this very same thing about America. 2 weeks ago you said exactly the same thing.
Oh, dude, I think there are 300 million hostages in the United States right now. That's what I think.
Well, yes, let's say there are 300 million hostages. Well, you know what's happening in China? There's 1 billion compliant people who just follow whatever the ruler tells them to do because that's the way it's always been for 5,000 years. Look,
I think there are 1 billion and a half. Dude, I think 1.5 billion hostages are in China, and you got 300 million hostages.
Well, what are we doing to free those guys? What are we doing to free those guys? Nothing. We're working with those guys.
Free what guys? Come on. Free the Chinese. Free the people that are living under.
Are we doing anything right now? Have we ever raised any concerns with their human rights? We're busy boycotting our neighbors here.
Yes, we
ditching all these incredible assets that that we held of theirs, accentuating their demise. These are our neighbors, our biggest trading partners, and we're doing that to them in exchange for a deal with the Chinese, who are vastly more corrupt, who are busy taking over the world, or destroying the balance of the world, who are actually the people who installed this president in the United States. And we are busy doing their bidding for them around the world. It's time for Canada to stand up for itself, as the Prime Minister keeps saying, that Canada can stand up for itself, can be itself. They're acting like a proxy right now for the Chinese, and it's
not true.
It is true.
Dude, we have refused to sell any Chinese vehicles. We have sanctions on Chinese stuff. They've got sanctions on us as well. Everybody's sanctioning each other. Everybody's tariffing
Do
each other.
you
There
know
is a
that Carney's already
100%.
signed a deal with Beijing about to deal with all this new the new mineral deals and all these other things in order to take over the supply that we've been giving the United States. You know that there's a deal that's been done, right? I
Is
mean, it's
there?
not.
Is
Yeah,
there a deal
I
that's been
believe
done?
so. I've read about that. I don't know.
I
I have
haven't
to look
read
at.
it.
Okay, I'd read about it. Listen, and there's all these other things dogging Carney as well that are challenging. But I am, Canadians need to understand they've got a terrible choice in this election ultimately. Now that I think about it more, but if this government, if this the Carney government can't stand up for the American people, can't stand up for the values that we believe in. I have not heard him talk about
Dude,
values.
that is,
I
you know
did
what?
not hear him talk about freedom of
That is
speech. I did not
100%
hear him
wrong.
talk about the people that are suffering across the border. I haven't heard him. I heard him talk about a lot of things about Canada becoming a superpower, about a bunch of other things, but not about
That's
that.
100% wrong. Every single time you want to talk about what
Am
kind
I
of
sounding like
supports.
MAGA? Bullshit. I'm not sounding like
Yeah,
MAGA. I'm
yeah, a
even
little bit.
swearing.
You're getting there. Yeah,
No,
yeah. You
no,
told me
no,
not to
no,
swear in
no.
a text today, and now I'm losing life. Um,
We need a swear jar.
yeah, you need a swear jar. I'm doing great. No, but
Ouch.
listen,
I'm
Mark
making
Carney,
one for you.
Mark Carney specifically, and he's said this on more than one occasion. More than one occasion. He feels sorry for the American people. He understands this is not the American people that are doing this, but he has to protect this country, and those are the levers at his disposal, and that is what he's doing. Now, when it comes to China, and he's tariffing them, yes, when it comes to China, we're not cozy with China. We don't like China. We know we have to deal with China, but China's not threatening to invade Canada. The United States is several times. We're going to take your country by force. We're going to move the border. We're going to come up there and take over your beautiful country, and you'll be the cherished 51st state. We have not been
The words
threatened.
of a crazy man
I
who
sure, but it's why we're here, and so you have to deal with why you're here and the words that crazy man says and take it at face value. So
except
who is there left to do business with in this world when it comes to? And by the way, I have not seen anything about any trade deals that we have struck with
okay,
China because
I'll
I
find that.
believe that Mark Carney is fairly hawkish on China at the moment.
The
However, we
yeah.
have to do something. And to be able to deal with the United States of America on a level playing field, we can't do it if we're not doing business with people that they're not doing business with.
Listen, I understand the need for a response to the attacks, the threats against the Canadian sovereignty. Of course, it's ridiculous that the president of the United States had launched those incredible, but they're verbal threats. Really, they're kind of they're a lot of talking without
It's
any
a
real.
threat. A
It's
threat
a
is a
threat,
threat is a
and
threat,
we
and
should
you
be
got to treat
threatening
it
them
like
back
one.
with some things. But
We
what we're
are.
doing now is participating in the plunging of the American dollar, the complete erosion of the American dollar for permanently. We will no longer have the underpinning of the US dollar with everything it stands for, the
We're not
freedoms it
doing
stands
it.
for. We are doing it because we were
We're
also
not.
selling.
He did it. Donald Trump did it. Donald Trump is forcing the world's hand. That's what
Donald
this
Trump
is
is
his
trying to do
fault,
this on
not
behalf
ours.
of China. And that's the thing that I keep underlining here. He is so beholden to China, and it's so clear to me, and maybe it isn't clear to everybody else, but this is a Chinese and Russian installed president. He is basically doing their bidding. Of course, they are loving this trade war. They've basically now cut off all trade with the United States today through their latest trading tariff increases. They're now saying we're not basically going to be trading with the United States.
By the way, those MAGA hats are now 125% more.
But this is my
Yes,
point
yes.
exactly. MAGA
I
is made
understand.
in China, it's made in Russia, so is
Yep.
Donald Trump. And this madman who's been installed as the president of the United States, who's making war threats around the world, who's busy tariffing the world, is doing the bidding of the Chinese government. And so is now Canada, because they are participating in this. I think
Strong
that this is
statement. We're not doing the bidding of the Chinese
I think
government.
there's a point. There's another way to say, hey, let's make sure the American dollar does not decline. We should not be abandoning the American dollar. The American dollar is the standard bearer for values that we believe in democracy, in freedom of speech, in the freedom of the press, in the freedom to protest, in the freedom to have a say, in the freedom
None
to
of those
determine
things
your own
exist in the
destiny.
United States. None of those things exist in
Those
the
things
United States anymore.
are the underpinning of the U.S. dollar, and they still exist. As I see it today, there's still a U.S. Supreme Court that is standing up to the executive, and until that goes away, I don't
No,
think
they're
that's
not.
true. Yeah,
No,
they
they're
are.
not.
They're
We
standing up.
agree to disagree. We agree to
Okay, number
disagree.
4 on the countdown. Then the whole show's like this, by the way, because it's all the same
Good.
theme.
Oh,
But
good.
you remember that J.D. Vance went to the
Greenland.
Tifuki. I don't know. You said space base, the U.S. space base.
Putufik, yeah,
Beautiful.
Greenland, Putufik, U.S. Yeah, Space Command in Greenland, which
Yeah.
still makes
So
me laugh. Yeah,
So the commanding officer of that 821 space base group, which oversees the space base you just mentioned in Greenland, she's been removed from command for loss of confidence in her ability to lead. Spurred on by a base-wide email she sent March 31st, days after the visit by the VP, JD Vance, in which she attempted to distance herself from several controversial statements made by the vice president. In the email, Colonel Myers, I'm not sure you said, appeared to push back against several statements made during the visit by the vice president, critical of Denmark and Greenland, stating, I spent the weekend thinking about Friday's visit, the actions taken, the words spoken, and how it must have affected each of you. I do not presume to understand your current politics, but what I do know is the concerns of the US administration discussed by Vice President Vance on Friday are not reflective of Pituffik Space Base, adding, I commit that for as long as I am lucky enough to lead this base, all our flags will fly proudly together. This is an apparent attempt towards unity because there's thousands of Danes, Greenlanders, and Americans who work at Pituffik Space Base, which she commands. And the vice president, obviously on his visit there, roiled the leadership there. So now she has been fired for lack of loyalty. It brings back the specter of the other war that Donald Trump keeps talking about, which is a war on Greenland and taking Greenland.
yeah.
This is a very, she seems like a very dedicated career professional here who's being relieved of her duty. It sounds another bad move by the Trump administration.
It's a DEI firing. It's a woman. Of course it is. They got
Yes, of
rid of
course.
her. She's a female. I read that today, and I don't know how much time you want to spend on this, but when Vice President Couchhumper showed up to Greenland with his wife Usha and waved to nobody, like literally nobody that was standing in the crowd, and they panned over, I thought this is not going to go well. Kudos to her. Kudos to her. She tried to calm things down. She tried to actually extend an olive branch to the people of Greenland, not quite apologizing, but saying, I don't quite understand how you feel, but I can tell that, there were probably a lot of things that might have upset you. I just wanted to thank you for having us here and let you know that we love being your partner. That's
Yeah.
basically what she said. And for that, she was deemed unloyal, disloyal, and she was removed from her position immediately. And the reason why she was removed from her position really had nothing to do with anything that it was in that email. It was because Donald Trump and JD Vance are two of the biggest pussies on the planet. They are both the most thin-skinned, childish, stupid presidents and vice presidents that you will ever see or ever have in human history of the United States. Hopefully that's enough. Hopefully
I'll
that
agree with you on that. That I
y'all are
agree
going to
with
learn
you.
from it. And so, and JD Vance also is an incel. So JD Vance was never married. If you read his book, Hillbilly Elegy, which is actually a pretty good book, he talked about not having any girlfriends, so he had to hump couches. Like that's what he and his friends did when they grew up. He grew up being a fat, greasy, somewhat intellectual kid that made his way to Harvard despite his mom had a massive meth addiction. See, I caught myself. I didn't swear there. And so he doesn't respect women. He's scared of women. And anytime a woman upsets an incel, it's on. It's on. And the second that she sent that email, he felt slighted because he's so petty and he's so thin-skinned, and he is really the king of the incels. Outside of Pierre Poilievre and Elon Musk, he decided that she had to go, and that's what happened here. She was a woman DEI hire, so they'll hide it under that. They'll make up some lame excuse to get rid of that woman, which they did, saying she was disloyal, and she was none of those things. She had a storied career in the military. She was in charge. She was a female in charge of a military installation in another country who was trying to save the relationship with the country that was in, because the vice president went there and said, we're going to take your shit. We're just going to take it.
Is
And
this
it's
your
going to be
read, or is
fun.
this something you actually are familiar? Or you think that this is really the case? I mean, is this something you're just
Oh, this is
analyzing?
no. This is an analysis through the reading the tea leaves and reading everything that I read about this poor woman today, and knowing what I know about JD Vance. That's what this administration is. This administration's afraid of strong women, and it's afraid of people that know what the f they're doing, like Mark Carney, which is why they back down to women. And if they can't back down to women, then they get rid of women. And if they can't get through a guy like Mark Carney or someone who's smarter than them, and trust me, the world is smarter than both of these two jackoffs, then they insult, they threaten, and they demean. that is what they do, and that is what this is.
It's also consistent with what they've been doing. I mean, they've been
Yeah,
basically eliminating all the previous leadership in the military, especially any of that seem non-compliant. So we've lost the chairmen of the
Joint
chiefs
Chiefs.
of joint chiefs, and other generals that have also been placed in early retirement or removed. So it's not inconsistent with that. I will say that it's terrifying that the army so far has held a very, very firm stance against this administration. I believe, from everything I see and from people I talk to, the military is not fully backing this administration.
Mm-mm.
They're standing on their own and they're pushing back wherever possible. But every time one of these important people, every time there's a leadership figure, whether it's someone just on a base like this, or the recent European commander who spoke out against the withdrawal of 10,000 troops from Europe. Those guys. He's obviously on his way out, and you can see that those last standing guardrails, as we've been talking about, are beginning to disappear. And in the military, that is not a very comforting thing. It certainly lends credence that we're heading into conflict, and it's not a good-looking conflict that's straight ahead. I think that the conversations around, even though I just said that this was just war about Canada or just talk about Canada, there seems to be real talk about Greenland as a real target for them to try and take over Greenland. So, there you go. I'm arguing against myself. I'm going to move to story number
Three.
three.
You got it.
I'm going to move this up, actually.
Fine.
We'll get
You
back. We'll
feeling
get
it?
back.
You feeling this one?
I won't change it. I won't change it. But you'll see the theme. There's a theme here. So there's a guy named Smirnov, Alexander Smirnov, who was the guy who ultimately created the Hunter Biden conspiracy theory that Hunter Biden's laptop and all of this other stuff. He was the guy who first initiated the rumors around that. He pled guilty last December. He's now in jail. He's expected to be in jail for a long time, except for the Department of Justice is now reviewing the Smirnov case in an attempt to actually drop these charges. So it looks to me like the guy who birthed all these allegations against Biden and Biden's son, who was arrested, who is being imprisoned now, rightfully so, for committing these crimes. The Trump administration is busy letting him go. They haven't done it yet, but they're reviewing the charges, and you know where this goes. So thank you, Pam Bondi. Thank you, Kash Patel. The new Department of Justice is in the hands of the Russians.
Yeah. Remember when they pardoned the Silk Road guy that had been in jail for 10 years for selling heroin to people, fentanyl, killing millions of people, providing a platform to share child pornography. Remember that?
Mm-hmm.
That happened. There was a purpose behind that. There's a purpose behind everybody that he pardons. And just like he's discussing giving reparation pay to the J6 insurrectionists, some of which were in jail, 1,500 of them, 1,500 different charges, violent crimes. You can always count on Donald Trump to transparently pull someone that he needs, or someone who has helped him do something absolutely terribly nefarious, back from the brink. If there's one thing you could say about Donald Trump, is that he's very loyal to people who will commit crimes for him. Like, he's really loyal to people who will help him cheat, lie, steal, hurt his neighbor, hurt other people, steal crypto. Like, he will go to the mat.
He likes criminals. He likes criminals because
criminals.
Then he's got dirt on them, right?
Yes, absolutely.
And they got dirt on him. It's easy, so he loves criminals. That's why the entire administration is full of criminals.
Huge
There's
fan.
so many of them.
Yeah. They're all criminals. They're all rapists. They're all sexual assault abusers of women. They're all financial crimes. The financial crimes that some of the people in his administration have committed are staggering. So not a surprise that he's rewarding the guy who tried to corral Hunter Biden's laptop, make up this absolutely bullshit narrative about Hunter Biden, which they still like to pimp from time to time, which is absolutely hilarious.
They are still on it. What worries me about this case is I think that they're still on it. By taking these charges off of Smirnov, they're going to try whitewash what he said and his role in it, and then they're going to still do their thing in terms of trying to, they won't go after Hunter because he's got the pardon.
He's
maybe they will.
This is psychotic. Like, every clip I see of him, every story I hear about him gets more psychotic, more deranged. Like, he's more insane than he has ever been, and he's also absolutely unabashed about that insanity. He doesn't give a shit what other people say when it comes to him criminally pulling people that are criminals out of criminal hawk. Like, he doesn't give a shit about anything other than himself at this point, and surrounding him with as much influence and power and effort as he humanly can. I don't know why he's operating like he's a king. He thinks he's a king, but
Well,
at
he's been
some
told he's a king.
point,
He's got sycophants all around him telling him
yeah,
that he can do all this and he can't, you know? It's a
yeah,
real challenge. Let's get into the number two story of the day then, which is all about the constitutional crisis that we seem to be heading into. So he does think he's king. He thinks he can take people off the streets of America and send them to El Salvador jail and then leave them there without any due process. The
yeah.
Constitutional Court, the Supreme Court has now come back with a ruling around Abrego Garcia saying, you know, you do actually have to bring this guy back. We agree with the lower court. However, they've negotiated a sort of a weird semantics issue about these two words, facilitate or effectuate.
Mm-hmm.
So the bottom line is the Supreme Court expects the lower court's decision, which is going to be about bringing this poor guy who's now in El Salvador jail back home. They expect the government to do it, and the government is not doing it. You know, Steve Miller and his friends are just like digging in their heels and are refusing to bring this guy back, which I'm sure will just take a phone call and or two to get him back if they know where he is. I assume they do.
Well, that's the thing, is that I don't think that they know where he is. The pushback against, all you got to do is bring this one guy back, right? They're like,
Yeah,
bring this one guy back, you're done. And they're like, nope, we're not even telling you where he is.
they must know.
So,
They must know.
well, and here's what I think is going on. I've seen more than one report suggesting that this Maryland father, who is in the United States legally,
Mhm.
who was corralled as a supposed MS-13 gang member because he didn't like his
Yeah,
tattoos, sent to
but
El
not an
Salvador.
MS-13.
No, not at
Yeah.
all. There are rumors that he is dead. So these rumors that this gentleman, this Maryland father who paid taxes in the United States illegally, was sent to a concentration camp in El Salvador for some of the most hardened criminals in the world. Um, and the government doesn't want to bring him back. And they're making a big deal out of it when they don't have to, like a really big deal, where they're pushing this down the road as far as they can, and not quite mocking the judge in this case, but sort of teasing him. And that tease I had been teasing. Now that teasing stopped. Now they're trying to figure out a way to get out of this on semantics alone, because it would be much easier to be able to just tell everybody where he is. Just say, yeah, okay, we'll bring him back. That was our bad, which they admitted was their bad. But you can't bring someone back from the dead, Zev. And that's what I think might be
Well, that
going
would
on.
be impracticable, which is what they said, that it's just impracticable to bring him back. Maybe that's the case. Look, if that is the case, we could be sitting on top of not only a constitutional crisis, but these are murders. These are murders taking place. And if people are disappearing like that and dying in the custody of the El Salvador government, then
Yeah.
this is a mass murder potentially if it's not just him. And that means the government will be beholden for that and should be held to account for that. It also means that this is the kind of stuff that really triggers the population. It really, whenever you see stuff like this happening, people dying without due process, people dying under suspicious circumstances around the world, this is when you've seen Arab Springs and the like really start to flourish, because
He's an
then
American citizen,
he's an
Zev.
American citizen, yeah, if he's dead and the American government sent him to his death without due process, this is a big deal. And these are rumors right now. We don't have any proof of that, but we're going to find out sooner rather than later, and the administration should be owning up to it at least, because it's coming. Regardless, it's coming.
Mm-hmm.
The constitutional crisis is also coming, because if they don't return him, this is a massive issue, because this is a 9-0 decision by the Supreme Court. If the government does not follow through on their decision, it means that they are usurping the power of the Supreme Court, and that is a fundamental constitutional crisis. So either way, super important story. The final story today is that it is the number one story. 9 days from now, we will be officially triggering, I think, a national emergency on the southern border of the United States. Well, that's already been declared, but the Insurrection Act could be in force within 9 days on the Mexican border. And already there are 10,000 American troops in all sorts of capacity along the southern border. According to this one report, the 4th Infantry Division, 2nd Stryker Brigade, combat team has arrived there. There are 10,000, I'll get the exact details here as you're talking, but there's a buildup already. Currently, they're just helping the local border officials to manage the situation to see if people are coming in. They have reported that there's very few people actually coming across the border, so maybe it's not such an emergency as people believe. But it is seems to me that this is going ahead. The military is about to take over a whole part of America. They will not only be doing what they're doing now, which is running the border, but they'll be able to do typical law enforcement stuff to help in whatever situation they need. So beginning, in just under 2 weeks, we're going to see, in just less than 2 weeks, we're going to see people, potentially the military acting as police, arresting people, removing immigrants they don't like, or whatever else they don't like. And what's particularly concerning here is this is all predicated on the notion that America is under attack by the cartels south of the border in Mexico, and that people are really concerned that there might be a war with these cartels who have been deemed enemy combatants. And there's also an unusual naval buildup along the Mexican border, or along the Mexican shorelines, which is worrying people that this might even be a lot more than just a military, buffer zone along the border, but actually staging for a future military attack there or in Panama.
Yeah, it's weird. I mean, it's not that we didn't know that this was happening. That troop buildup started the second that Donald Trump came into office. They sent a couple thousand people that were trying to fight wildfires down there, if you remember that, some of the military, and then they've slowly been kind of building up some artillery and some equipment that isn't just used to secure the border. To your point, including some frigates and some navy and some ships that are off the coast of San Diego towards Mexico, and you've got some in the Gulf of Mexico as well. Gulf of Mexico. And the other day they were talking about the Alien Enemies Act, which is a 227-year-old act that has only been put into effect during wartime.
Yeah.
And they're using that Alien Enemies Act and might just trigger the act to be able to do exactly what you're talking about. And apparently, and I did some reading on the Washington Post, this starts with drones. And after the drones go in and pretend to kill all the cartels, that's when they say that it's unsafe. And because Mexico is unsafe, it's now unsafe to the United States of America. And so the thinking is that is going to trigger a larger scale invasion or occupation of parts of Mexico or Mexico proper itself. So, the military buildup is enormous. 10,000, active duty military personnel are currently stationed and building some type of forward center that, the words that they were using is a 60-foot buffer zone. That buffer zone is literally a launching pad for war. So, once again, nothing Donald Trump says is true. It is all a lie. And for him to label Mexican cartels as terror entities, right? They're not terrorists. They're just drug gangs. You want to call them terrorists, you go ahead and call them terrorists. But the only reason he gave them that designation is so this could be possible. Yeah. Same thing with Canada. When he labeled Canada basically a threat to the United States because of the fake fentanyl problem that he made up, which somehow has disappeared, by the way, because we don't have a fentanyl problem. It literally gave him the opportunity to do this. Now, if I'm you and I harken back to the beginning of this conversation where you're like, he's a madman. These are just crazy words that he uses. These aren't words. These are actions, bro. Like, this is happening. There are 10,000 active duty troops and wartime war equipment at the border, not for some kind of invasion, but it's literally some kind of invasion. So there you go.
You don't have to convince me of the fact that he is, has some legitimate threats in terms of what he's saying, and that this is a very real buildup. I've been saying it for years. I'm probably the most outspoken person against Donald Trump there is. But I will tell you that sinking the American dollar is not in favor of the Chinese renminbi is not a policy I can support. But I absolutely 100% believe that we need to be doing everything we can to stop Donald Trump and get him out of power. These are two different things.
How you get him out of power is you devalue the dollar. You make
because he really wants the dollar devalued.
You make the whole country turn on him, and you make them pull him out.
No, he's just going to turn on all of us. I mean, the people are just going to turn on all of us because
he's going to fight the entire world. Is that what he's going to do?
He is fighting the entire world. This is the point of tonight's show. The theme of tonight's show is really that he is so crazy or so enraged or so beholden to China that he is basically starting to fight with everybody. So this war with China, which is a trade war, it is directly helping China. It is not hurting China in any way. It's supporting their manufacturing sector. It's helping them build their influence around the world. It's helping their renminbi rise up as the currency of record, the reserve currency. It is a very good thing for the Chinese. They love it. Plus, they might even go to war with the United States and win. So how nice is that for them? Next is this attack on Greenland. You know, he's attacking NATO. He's attacking the EU. He's got these constitutional crises that he's birthing all around the place. He's helping Russian spies be freed. And now you've got this issue in Mexico where he could be attacking Mexico and Panama. You know, this guy is crazy. There is no doubt about it.
Hey,
and a warmonger.
I'm getting the distinct opinion here that you think he's an asset of the Russians and the Chinese.
It's not an opinion. I think it's fact. You know,
that's 100% a fact. Every one of these actions is exactly what Z wants. Every one of these actions is exactly what Putin wants. Every one of these actions just dictates that he's not American. He's not American. A captured asset of foreign superpowers who's just trying to get his own.
Yeah.
Wake up, everybody. Wake up. Protest this weekend.
And, 19th is the next protest. The Friday, I think it's on the Saturday. The April 19th is the day that there'll be a huge protest. A reminder that that'll be the day before he is going to do the Insurrection Act. The Insurrection Act will be applied almost anywhere. So after it's applied in the southern border, it can be
on you, people. If you go out for one of those protests, you could be caught up.
Well, if you go out on the 19th, you're okay. There's no Insurrection Act, so go to it. And look, this is becoming clearer and clearer. There are two ways out of this, and the only way out, there's two ways. There's war, and there's Donald Trump's eviction from power. I don't see any other ways. I mean, there is a constitutional path through next year's elections, sure. I don't know if they're going to be free or fair, not after that SAFE Act. So those are the two paths.
Hey, thanks for the fight to start the show today. We completely disagree, and we'll get into that in the show on Monday.
I still love you. I can disagree with you, and it's no problem. It's no problem. Yeah. We could just disagree a little bit.
I know. Isn't that crazy? Wouldn't it be great if the whole world worked like that, where people completely disagree, got in a heated argument, then had a laugh and said, "I love you. Have a great weekend."
Yeah, absolutely, no problem. We've been stuck to time, which is amazing. Everyone can check out my Substack at narrative.org, narrativ.org, and you can check out deanblundell.substack.com for his Substack, and there's also a special deal on his Substack right now. You can get a lifetime subscription for the price of a annual subscription, and on mine you can get 30% off. Not as quite good a deal, but it's a damn good deal. Support us both. We love you very much. Have a great weekend, and we'll see you next week on the FiveStack. Good night, everybody.